Welcome, I'm Mark Westcott and this is Warren Watch. This is a show that takes a close look at the issues that are important to people in Warren County. Today our guest is Kevin Garrity. He's the supervisor of Warrensburg. Kevin has held a number of leadership positions at the county, including being a former chairman of the board. We're going to talk about sales tax and how it's distributed to the different municipalities. Mr. Garrity has challenged his colleagues on the board to see if there's a way to do it more fairly. We're going to talk about other issues that are important to taxpayers in Warren County, so I hope you'll stay tuned. This is Warren Watch, and we'll be right back. I'm here with Warrensburg Supervisor Kevin Garrity. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
Why don't we start off with a little bit about your background? Why don't you talk about where you grew up? I understand you had some private sector experience, and how'd you come into public life?
Well, I'm born and raised in Warrensburg, and went to Warrensburg School, a couple of years of college, Albany Business College, and then I went right to work for International Paper in 1970. And I worked in various jobs. I obviously had an accounting degree, but I worked my way up through and went into manufacturing, and my last job there was a PS&D manager for IP over in Corinth. You know, I really liked my time there. I learned a lot. They're an excellent company to work for. Unfortunately, you know, they chose to close the mill down in 2002, so I was kind of out of work, and that's my history of being in the area. But yeah, great company to work for. Learned a lot, and I tried to bring my business experience with me when I went into government.
Did you initially run for town supervisor, or were you on the council first? Or tell us a little bit about that.
No, actually, in 1980, and when I was a lot younger, I got appointed to the town board, which I stayed there for 14 years, and then I was defeated in 1994 for the town council position, so I kind of gave politics a rest, although, you know, I kept involved and I've always been interested in the politics. And I had heard in 2005 that Supervisor Quintel wasn't going to run again, so you know, I announced my candidate in 2006, you know, that I was going to run, and I was able to win election. So I've been there since 2006.
You really jumped in with both feet. You've held a number of leadership positions at the county. Most recently, you were the interim county administrator. Why don't you tell us about that experience?
Well, I like doing a job. When I first went into it, you know, I kind of thought that we would be able to do it, but it did wear me down. I mean, I knew that—
Because you were doing basically two jobs.
Right, I was chairman for a while because of the rules of the board. When Paul Dusick left, I became the acting county administrator. So that 1 year I did it, and I stayed in the position. And the following year I stayed in dual roles as chairman and administrator, and it wore me down somewhat. But I must say I was very pleased with the support I got from the staff and from the employees. And, you know, I couldn't have done it by myself. I had great support down there. I made a lot of good friendships, which I continue to have today with the staff and the department heads. And so, but I did a self-assessment and said, you know, I'm not doing the right job for Warren County. It's time we find an administrator. So we went on a search, and we're very fortunate to have the person we have now in Ryan Moore.
I agree. You guided the county during that time period with a steady hand. I want to just say thank you for that.
Yep,
commend you for that. Ryan Moore is doing a good job.
He is. He was excellent. He was a good find. You know, he had worked in Saratoga County for a period of time as a deputy administrator, and he has wealth of knowledge and experience. Not only in Saratoga County, we went down to Westchester and worked down there. So he's been a great asset for the county. He's a great person, and I'm pleased that we were able to hire him.
Yeah, I've had some very positive interactions with him.
Yeah.
Now, you were chairman for 4 years, 2 terms.
Yeah.
You miss being chairman?
I do miss it somewhat. And there again, you know, you miss the camaraderie of the staff. You know, I would try to go there every other day. Sometimes I would go every day down to the county. But, you know, I think that's what I miss the most about it. And I approached it that I had to let the department heads do their work. You know, it was up to them now, because I wasn't going to hover over them and do that. But we were very fortunate that we had good people at the time. You know, there was a lot going on, Mark, which we'll get into. You know, we had a lot of different projects, but my style was hands-on, I mean, I was there every day. They appreciated that. I always had their back on doing things. And I thought at the time when I went in as chairman, we were starting to recover from the recession, and we had to do certain things like build up the fund balance. And one thing I did find, this county is very service oriented. I mean, we provide a lot of services to people. It's different than from manufacturing. So I had to kind of separate the two for a while. But it was a good learning experience, and I missed the people. And I think that, I was never one to shy away from the problems. I tried to, solve the problems as people would want me to do, and taking in account everybody in the county. So that was my approach.
When I first got involved, I had no idea the number of things that go on at the county, and I think that's a really important point to make to the viewers, that there is so much that goes on at Warren County.
There is.
It's a big job.
Yeah, we have 32 departments, different facets, from roads to social services to planning to elections. So you're involved in a little bit of everything, and one person can't do it. That's why you got to rely on your staff.
What are you most proud of? You've been on the board now for a while. You were chairman for 4 years. What if you had one or two things that you would want to know? What are you really most pleased about?
Well, I think recovering from the recession. When I went in
2008, 2009.
Yeah, when I went in as budget officer, the county was borrowing $6 million a month just to meet payroll. And my first year as budget officer, I learned a very hard lesson that if you don't do well the prior year, you inherit it the next year. So now you got to recover from that. So, in 2009 we had to lay off staff. That was very hard to do, but it's probably never been done in the history of Warren County. We had to do it to get back on track. I think building up the fund balance when I left as budget officer up to $14 million was important. My time as chairman, I think seeing the Siemens problems to an end was good, and finally getting a lot of good information from different various sources, we were able to come to a conclusion on the Siemens issue. Whether people agree or don't agree, I think the court project was started in my tenure and finished this year. I thought the court project was a good project that we needed to do, so I was pleased that we got that done. So those are a couple of the things. And then filling key positions. We've had to fill some key positions up there, whether it be DSS commissioner. We've had two DSS commissioners. We're on our third. And like I said, the administrator and those type of things. So those are some of my accomplishments that I'm proud of, I think. And seeing the county do better was important.
Well, there's so much that I could capture in what you just said, but I'm going to kind of pivot here. How's the county doing now financially?
We're doing very well financially, and it's because the economy has picked up, but also our sales tax revenues are up quite a bit, almost 5% this year. We rely heavily on the sales tax. But the county's doing very, very well. I think, on our 5-year budgeting plan, which we instituted in 2012, it's very, very helpful. We've recovered some. Can we do better? Yes, we can always do better. I think, the way we budget in Warren County now, we budget a true budget. When I started, we asked the department heads to please bring in a budget of the money you want, don't pad it. And that was a change because, if you look around at all the counties, a lot of them will come in with 10, 12, 13% increases and all of a sudden whittle it down to 3%, pat themselves on the back and think they've really accomplished what they needed to. Where we go in and tell the department heads, give us what you really need, and we'll try to live with it. So.
Right. Well, that's good. We're going to talk more about the budget. We're going to talk about sales tax and the distribution of it to the different municipalities.
Right.
But we need to take a break, and we'll come right back. Welcome back. This is Warren Watch. I'm here with Kevin Garrity, the supervisor from Warrensburg. Kevin, we talked a lot about your work at the county, but first and foremost, you are supervisor of the town of Warrensburg. How's Warrensburg doing?
Warrensburg's doing very well. I mean, obviously I'd like to see more business located in the community, but, our businesses up there are doing very, very well. With the new health center, brings a lot of people into the community. But our two tops recovered from the expansion of Price Chopper across the bridge in the town of Lake George. Oscar's, Deli and Meat Store of North, Jacobs and Tony are doing well. The two car dealerships are doing well, and most of the mom and pops are doing all right. And in the restaurants we have in town continue to strive with this. And I would think everything's going pretty well in town.
Yeah, it's a wonderful town. I go up there probably
a lot of traffic.
A little too often for those meat stores, but
a lot of traffic.
It's really a wonderful place.
Yeah.
Well, that's great to hear. And this leads into our discussion of the day, which is the sales tax discussion. A number of us that keep tabs of what's going on at Warren County were really quite surprised at the powerful words used in the October board meeting, where you called the distribution of sales tax to the town of Warrensburg a grave injustice.
Right.
That caught a lot of people's attention and started a debate around the subject. What motivated you now at this time to challenge the way the sales tax is being distributed?
Well, there's a couple things. First off, when you're chairman of the board, you have to sit up there and, you kind of can't put your community first. You got to look at the county. So, I looked at this in 2006 when I first went there and found out, it was all based on assessed value. And so that was some of the things, I looked at and said, geez, I don't know what we can do about that. But what really forced me to do it this time, I was having a meeting with our town board, and there was somebody who had bought a home in a lakefront community, and their taxes were minimal compared to what they were paying in Warrensburg. And they asked me about that. The board asked me about that, my town boards. How does that happen? Well, I explained it to them, and I got out my spreadsheets and I showed them the sales tax distribution system. They said, well, that doesn't seem fair. So I said, okay, I'll see if I can bring something up to the county that makes some sense. So I sat down and collected my thoughts, and I got some good numbers and good figures that I could present at a board meeting. And I said, I'll give it a shot. And I just want them to understand, it's about fairness for me. It's all about fairness. And I'm not out to hurt any community that has the assessed value, but they don't make land every day. I can't make more land in Warrensburg. I have to deal with what I have, and I don't have a big lake, and I don't have expensive lakefront property. So what do I do? What do I have? I have a lot of people who spend a lot of money in my community. I have $20 million worth of exempt properties. And what I mean by that is, and I'm not talking about property, I'm talking about buildings. I have a state highway department up there. I have a DEC building up there. I have, Warren County has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 properties in my community that are exempt from taxes. And then we have Hudson Headwaters Health Network, which does between 50 and 60,000 encounters a year. Now that's 50 or 60,000 people coming into your community a year just to go to the health center. And I'm very happy, and it's like I said in my report to the Board of Supervisors, I'm very happy that those people travel into our community, buy gas, buy groceries, spend money. But the money going to sales tax leaves the community and goes back to the state, and then is distributed back to the county, and then it's distributed by assessed value. It seems complicated, but that's the way it works.
Right.
And I believe that I certainly generate more sales tax in the town of Warrensburg than I get back based on this current formula.
When you look just at the sales tax, I couldn't agree with you more, but there are others that would argue that the way that the property tax is levied is based also on assessed property value.
Right.
And they're paying a disproportionate share. I've had one person write me and say, that's a grave injustice. How would you respond to that? His point of view was, because property taxes are also based on assessed property values, it's only fair the sales tax is also levied the same way.
Well, I have to have a tendency to disagree with that. I mean, I have 4,160 people who live in my community. They're year round. They're spending money in my community year round, and they're generating sales tax year round. I can't speak for all the lakefront communities, but a lot of those people are only there three months a year. And there again, I didn't come up with a formula, but I do know that the state allows the formula for sales tax to be distributed by population and assessed value. So anything I'm proposing is only what the state will allow us to do and what my colleagues on the Board of Supervisors see fit to say yes or no to. I mean, I understand if I was in a lakefront community and I had $1 million home, but if you look at their tax rates in lakefront communities, a lot lower than what you get in a town like Warrensburg. When you figure in the tax rate for school taxes and for fire tax and all the taxes that you pay, I don't know. I hear what they're saying, but I just don't think if they lived in my community and tried to budget with the amount of sales tax money I got, they would think it's fair.
I've looked at the numbers. The watchdog, Travis Whitehead, has run a spreadsheet with the help of Ryan Moore. I know you've seen that, I've seen that, some others have, and there's clearly going to be big winners and losers if you move to, say, a 50-50 formula, 50% based on property assessment, 50% based on population. So what is the likelihood of this actually happening, and what needs to take place in order for there to be changes in the sales tax distribution formula?
Well, it's my belief, we have to do it whatever the law allows. So that's the first thing. We need to understand whatever the law will allow. If it went 50-50, I couldn't be an advocate for that right off the bat, because that would put a big burden on some of the lakefront communities. But you also got to understand that 20% of the assessed value is and 80% of the population gets shortchanged here. If they change it by population, 80% would benefit, 20% would take a hit, and on the distribution of sales tax. So I'm not really sure. I've looked at the formulas. I didn't do a lot of in-depth in that because, like you said, other people have come up with the formulas. 5 or 6 communities would lose. The other communities all gain by making some sort of switch into population and assessed value.
So do you see this topic really being a central issue going into 2019? Do you see this getting traction, and it's not going to go away? There's going to be a lot of debate and discussion about this.
Well, I think we need to look at it. I think I think everything needs we need to dissect all of it, and we need to figure out how it can be fair. Now, if people believe that this is a fair way of doing it because that's the way they do property taxes, so be it. But it's tougher and tougher for us who don't get a lot of the sales tax money based on assessed value to come up with our budgets. We're in the 2% tax cap. We have the same expenses as a community that gets millions of dollars worth of sales tax. We have the same expenses. We have the same amount of roads to plow. Some of these communities are half my size. And when they get five times more sales tax, it's rough. It's rough. And my tax rate this year is $3.69. If you take the highest tax rate on a lakefront community, it's about $1.53. So I'm not sure it's disproportionate what they pay. 100%. I haven't really dove into it. Somebody smarter than me can really get behind the weeds and figure out how it equals out. But
I think that Ryan Moore is the kind of guy that could do that. There's a lot of variables. I'm getting a lot of feedback on this from people. And there's a lot of different variables. We're going to talk about that more when we come back. But right now, we've got to take a quick break.
Okay.
Welcome back. This is Warren Watch. We're having a great conversation with the supervisor of Warrensburg, Kevin Garrity. Kevin, you've called for fairness in the sales tax distribution. There are a number of people that have contacted me and talked about, in order to be fair, you really have to add in local and school taxes into the mix to look at the complete picture. What are your thoughts?
Oh, absolutely, because our tax rates are a lot higher. If you look at Warrensburg school tax, for instance, or fire tax, or any of those rates, it's all, when you base it on assessed value, it drives them up. And these communities don't have a lot of assessed value.
All right, so we agree that that is an important component, and so I hope that when the county really dives into this, that information is included, because it seems like it's a little bit of a black and white issue with some people. It's either property tax owners that are charged a lot of tax taxes for their assessed value. They see it very differently than communities like yours. So I'm hoping there will be sort of an impartial committee or review of some sort that will sift through all this data and come to a conclusion.
Absolutely.
Do you think there'll be a committee or something that will be assigned to this?
Yeah, I think, I'm pretty sure that we'll look at it maybe as a full board of supervisors, get everybody involved in looking at what can be done. I'm sure hopeful that we have a good, reasonable discussion about this and come up with some conclusion. Either make a change or don't make a change, and we just live with it.
Yeah, it's a complex formula, and it certainly shouldn't be shortchanged. Yep. I'm going to shift gears a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit about tourism. Tourism is so important to our region. Right. We do have Lake George. We have all the lakes in the Adirondack Park. Right. We drive a lot of tourists, drives a lot of sales tax revenue. But I'm going to talk a little bit about a different bucket of money called the occupancy tax. The occupancy tax is collected by hoteliers who collect occupancy tax for tourism stays in their hotels, and this is used to promote the region. There's been a call for the county to look at this money and spend it a little differently, maybe privatize it, take it out of the county, set up maybe like a destination marketing organization or something like that. Would you weigh in on this and share what you think about this?
Yeah, from my point of view, I wouldn't be, I'm not for taking it out of the county's coffers and shifting it to a private organization. I think Warren County Tourism does an excellent job. They've been very, very helpful. Have we made changes over the year listening to the business community? Absolutely. And you have to change because they're out there competing for every dollar with other regions around the state. So I think we've made the right changes. As far as the occupancy tax, I wouldn't want to lose what I get in my community to promote Warrensburg. We get a certain stipend every year. I'm not sure I would get the same promotional value if it went to, say, a private-owned organization or a private-run organization to promote the events. They may sort of look at one area more than others where I can go in and promote my community. It's worked very well for us.
As long as you stay with the guidelines, we were talking about this off air, as long as you stay within the guidelines, which you say you do,
absolutely,
it helps to promote tourism. But there are some claims that there are municipalities that are using those funds for almost like a, I don't know, pardon the expression, like a slush fund. They're paying for things that are not, quote unquote, putting heads in beds.
And I believe that is a problem, but the way I do it, and everybody does it their own way, but the way I do it, I follow the rules. And anybody can look at any of my reports that I've filed since I've been in office, strictly used on promotion. We don't stray from the events. And our events do very well in Warrensburg.
Sounds like it could be tightened up some. I hope that is something that could be done in the future. Getting back to sales tax, those dollars are so important to drive tourists into the area to generate sales tax. That goes into the overall budget. You're a former budget officer. Talk a little bit about the budgeting at the county and how important is sales tax to that equation. It's a $150 million budget.
Right.
How does sales tax work into the overall equation when you're budgeting for the county?
Well, your sales tax, it makes it whether you're going to increase or use fund balance or other aspects of it. When you use your sales tax to try to balance the budget, sales tax plays a huge impact on us. We looked at raising the sales tax one time, and how much we could garner for that. And I'm not a tax and spend guy, but if we came up with a reasonable formula where if we ever did go up 0.5% in sales tax, that we put it for county roads or to reduce our debt limits, I could go for that, I think.
Okay. So you're suggesting that, maybe there will be a look at raising the sales tax. Warren County, correct me if I'm wrong, Warren County is one of a handful of counties that is still at 3%. It's a total of 7%. The state keeps 4%, the county keeps 3%. Do you think there's any traction or will on this board to actually raise the sales tax?
I'm not sure, and like I said, I was not for it before. I voted against it. Certainly the amount of money you garner by the sales tax increase, like I said, the only way I could do something like that is if we designated certain funds that it had to go to, and that, wouldn't deviate that. I could probably support something with the numbers, and obviously we always want to improve our roads and cut down on debt. And it would have to also lower the taxes. That would be one thing that you can't just take in more money and keep the tax rate the same. I would say that we'd have to lower the tax rate in the county.
You mean the property tax
Property
rate?
tax rate, absolutely.
So you bring in more sales tax, and you would
You'd
use
have
that
to
to offset
we'd
the
have
property
to
tax.
cut the.
That's an interesting
I would
concept.
not support just taking in more sales tax dollars without cutting the property tax rate.
Gotcha. That would be interesting. I'd like to see that debate take place.
Right.
And talking about 2019, what are some of the other things on the agenda for 2019 that you're focused on?
Well, I think that one of the important ones is evolving an EMS district. All the towns are struggling to keep EMS viable. It's costing a lot more money. I think we need to look at it on a county-wide process. Also, I'd like to see the railroad back up and running. Hopefully, with the decision on the Hawes line, whether we can get freight on the railroad line, I think that would help us generate some revenue.
But you're talking more on a business side, like a freight side, not a tourism railroad?
Well, perhaps this company that we've been talking with a little bit would want to do a tourism line, but it's hard to make money on a tourist line.
Yeah.
If you had freight running over that line, it certainly would work out well for Warren County and everybody.
Well, there's a lot going on. Anything else you want to cover while you're on the show? You've got an opportunity to...
Well, the only thing, we're talking about the airport runway expansion. I know that's been a touchy subject. We brought in a new airport manager, a former airport manager, has a different plan for the runway expansion. I think we need to take a good look at that and see if we can't move that forward. I'm a proponent of it, and I have been since I think it's been proposed in 2006. We looked at it. It's never been built yet, but we'll see where that goes to.
Well, as you know, I write a newsletter. It goes out to 2,000 people, and I recently wrote one on the new guard at the airport. I called it a breath of fresh air. Don DeGraw is someone I have a lot of respect for. Kevin Hajos, the DPW superintendent, Ryan Moore. I have a feeling these guys are real professional, and they're going to get it right. So I'm hopeful that will be the case.
Absolutely. We need to do the right thing, and I think we're trying to do a course correction there and make a right move.
Right. There's always been talk of transparency issues at the county. We want to talk about that a little bit. There's been requests from time to time for information. Do you feel that the information is now being shared more freely, and it's more of an open system up in Warren County?
I do. I think we've made great strides into being more open. I think, taping all our meetings and filming and having TV8 put our meetings on, the county board meetings. A lot of people watch those, believe it or not, and they get comments about some of my colleagues. They talk too much or don't talk enough. But I think we've done a better job with transparency. Mark.
I agree. Well,
we try to get the information out.
Keep up the good work, Kevin. It's very nice having you on my show.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
And I just want to say it's been a pleasure having Kevin Garrity on. We're going to take a quick break, and then I'll be back to wrap up. Well, that wraps up this episode of Warren Watch. I want to thank Kevin Garrity, the supervisor of Warrensburg, for being on. He added a lot of clarity as to what was going on at the county, including the important sales tax discussion. You'll probably notice that we're on location. We're here at the venerable Queensbury Hotel. It's a wonderful place. I want to thank the Queensbury for hosting us today. Until next time, this is Warren Watch. Have a good week.
Promotional consideration by the Queensbury Hotel, a focal point of the Glens Falls region for almost 100 years.